Good morning, everybody. Lee Brower here, and welcome to this week's edition of Meaningful Monday. I am grateful to be with you, and I am glad to be with you. You know, is there a relationship between happiness and meaningfulness? And if so, which one drives which? You know, at Empowered Wealth, when people hear the company name of Empowered Wealth, I often ask them, what do you think of when you hear the word wealth? And they will go, well, because they think we're about money, right? So when you hear the word wealth, what do you think about? Most people do think about money, stocks and bonds, possessions or things. Well, the next question is then, do you have assets or possessions that you value more than your money, your financial possessions? And you might ask, you mean like my family, like my health? What about my values and beliefs? Would you trade those for more of the financial? Well, of course not. So when we talk about empowered wealth, what we're talking about is true wealth. And what we do at Empowered Wealth is we empower leaders in families, in business, and in communities to help other people live lives of meaningfulness and fulfillment. So let's talk about that word meaningfulness. Emily Esfahani, I hope I say her name correctly, Smith. Emily Esfahani Smith gave a great talk in TED where she identified 4 pillars of meaningfulness. Now, I'm going to paraphrase those, but I'm going to also add a 5th one. The first one she said was belonging, where you are valued for who you are intrinsically, and then how you value others as well. Some groups, they offer kind of like a cheap sense of belonging. Think of gangs, think of Facebook. They're not really that sense of belonging that's embedded in love. It's just a sense of belonging because you have a common interest. So think about how gangs attract young people, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. It's because they don't have that sense of belonging that the family can give them. And so they automatically go to where they can go. True belonging is centered in love. When you lead with love, you create a bond that lifts each other. Think about it. When you walk by someone without acknowledging them, or when you're checking your cell phone while somebody's talking to you, do you devalue that belonging or love? So being meaningful, having meaningfulness means that you're alert to that and you're centered to that concept of love and those people that are around you and where you're going and what you're doing, which leads us to 2. So 1 is meaningfulness, or a sense of belonging, and 2 then is purpose. What is your why? What is the you that makes you you? What is bigger than your job, bigger than your occupation, bigger than your hobby that drives you? What is that passion? What is it that's out there that you can say, my vision of the future sustains my present agony, that'll get you through whatever it is because you have that self-esteem of who you are, knowing that there's a divine you inside of you and that you're blessed and you've got this high self-esteem for yourself, where you're going and what you're doing. Which brings us to the 3rd one. So we have belonging, and then a sense of purpose or why. And the 3rd one is transcendence. And that's the spiritual aspect of this, to be able to rise above. But so oftentimes, how many of you have heard somebody say to you, or you've said to somebody else, God won't give you anything you can't handle? You know what I say to that? That's a bunch of baloney. God gives us things we can't handle so that we can draw closer to Him. Because together we are better, and together we can handle it. Number 4, storytelling. Storytelling about whom? About us. About us. We don't interpret our stories well enough. We cling on to things in the past, and we use those as excuses for why we can't succeed into the future. When even those most painful moments of the past, if we can embrace them, they will lead to new insights and wisdom for us. And of course, if we always ask ourselves, what am I learning? And we take that story and we put it together and we start telling ourselves that story, we will automatically become empowered and full of meaningfulness. Now here's where I added number 5. Number 5 is all about motion. There are no finish lines in life. No finish lines in life. If that's the case, then there's milestones. And when you have this sense of purpose, when you have this sense of belonging and you have this feeling, spiritual feeling of transcendence, this relationship that you have with God or a divine being, then if you're not in motion, you're not making it happen. So what's the smallest step you can take today, empowered with that? And it moves us towards meaningfulness. You see, getting what we want brings us temporary happiness. Happiness comes and goes. But when life is really good or life is really bad, having meaning gives you something to hold on to. That's why we have Meaningful Mondays. Have a meaningful week. I will talk to you next week. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Bye-bye.